cleanse, clear, and convert the aftermath into a rainbow. If you have the right attitude, you can grow and weather the storm. Let's talk about it now over Lunch with Stormy.
Hey everybody, welcome to Lunch with Stormy. I'm Stormy Simon, your host, and we're always serving real talk. I am a businesswoman, an e-commerce pioneer, and an outspoken advocate, and that's all the things that brings me here today. So you guys might remember last year, 2020, COVID, quarantine, all that stuff, and I decided to run for office in the red state of Utah. Tattoos ablazing, blue flag ablazing, became a Democrat. And I did it. And, I always insert stuff that I learned from that experience, which I highly suggest everybody run for office, even if you lose. It's amazing. But I also did during that time a Liberty Lunch edition of the podcast. And I was so obsessed with everything that I had learned about politics. Here I am in my 50s, living in America, voting when I didn't vote every year. I'm sorry, but I voted a lot. And thinking I'm a part of it, then you run for office and you're like, holy shit, I might not know what's going on. Seriously, that's a true thing. We don't really know what's going on. Today's guest does. During my Liberty Edition lunches, I spoke with Pulitzer Prize winning journalist for editing, Lennox Samuels. He's an amazing man living in Thailand or somewhere, just, beaten American politics around the globe. Sarah Riggs-Amico from Georgia, who's someone we can all follow. Even Fox News pundit, former Fox News pundit, Didi Sorvino. Interesting take on everything. But when it comes, I say this a lot about many things, but when it comes to politics, this is all about raising your hand and knowing your zip code. National thing is one thing, but your zip code may be more important to you. And our guest today knows all about the Virginia zip codes. He has devoted his life to advocacy for those who have been left behind by government and economy. And if you follow this show, you'll know how much that talks to my heart. He is a voice for the voiceless. He has literally brought hope to hopeless people, and he's blazed his own path in Virginia, the first in his family to graduate college and become a lawyer at a big firm. Big firm. We're going to talk about it later. We may never say their name, but it was a big firm. And that led him, all those steps led him to what he's doing right now at this moment in this environment, and he's running for lieutenant governor of Virginia. So there's a lot to dish up. There's a lot to chew on. And please join me in welcoming this man forging his own path forward for everybody living on this country, at least in it, Mr. Sean Perryman.
Hello, Stormy. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Now, before we got started, I just want to tell everybody that's listening on audio, because we live in this very Me Too world and you're not supposed to say inappropriate things. But here's the first thing I said to Sean. He's a handsome guy.
Thank you, Stormy.
Yeah. Sorry. I felt I needed to say it on air in case I got sued later, but it's good to meet you.
Don't worry about it, Stormy. It's good to hear compliments.
Yeah. So there's so much about you that is interesting. So I want to start at the beginning. You grew up in Virginia. That's right?
Yeah, I grew up between New York and Virginia. We moved to Virginia when I was 7 years old, and then we stayed here until high school, moved back to New York, and then moved back to Virginia. So that was my path.
And you love Virginia more.
Yes, obviously. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm running for lieutenant governor.
And now my brother was the first to graduate college from our family. So I know how those are big deals. What did your parents do?
Yeah, my parents worked for United Airlines. They were in what was called cabin service, which was everything from cleaning the plane to servicing it, getting it ready for when they drop off at the one flight at the gate, they would come in, get everything ready for the next flight, and then out again. And then there are also people you see, driving various things, baggage around and that sort of thing. So that's what they did for a living, both of them.
So you got to travel.
I did. I could fly for free until I was 25. So I got to fly standby for free. So sometimes I'd get stuck in different places, but it was definitely worth it.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's the best. I can't
Yeah.
believe they let you fly till you're 25. Those are like insurance. Like you can be on your parents' insurance till you're 26.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not sure what they do now. I'm sure they cut that back, but that used to be the rule, and it used to be great.
And you graduated. What did you study in college?
Yeah, I studied political science. I went to City University of New York, Baruch College, and I was a political science major. So I've always been interested in politics and policy.
And were you attracted to this lifestyle as a young guy?
You know, I was always interested in policy because I felt growing up, I didn't have much control over stuff that went on around me. Like I would see something that happened, whether it's as minor as a new stop sign was up or something like that. And I didn't know, well, how is the process? How does that happen? I didn't feel like very in control of that. So that was very interesting to me to get involved in that, at least studying it in that process. And I did some internships at the UN office, the mayor's office for immigrant affairs, and at the State Department. And so I've always been interested in policy, but never thought about running it for office at that age.
Goes right back to knowing your zip code. I mean, not a lot of people are thinking about what made them decide to paint those lines on the side of the road today, and how is the bureaucratic
Right.
process to actually get that done, and what it all entails. And that goes right to people's zip codes.
That's
It's,
right.
it's really different decisions for every zip code that you live in. Where your tax dollars are going is really what people, when I was running, I wanted to pay attention to, like, are your tax dollars going towards what you like as a human? Because if not, there's definitely a zip code for you.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things after 2016, people sort of became more civically engaged. At least I saw a lot of that. And then I think they were surprised to see that some of their local officials weren't aligned with them in the ways that they thought they would be.
It definitely opened our eyes, at least mine on a local level. 2016, and people, regardless of what side of the aisle you were on, it was intense. It was just
Right.
intense. I'm losing friends. I'm, staying quiet in dinner conversations, which has never happened, and just being very aware. And it just escalated. We continued to move forward as a society on many issues and many hashtags. And you have a promo video out, which I encourage people to watch. It's super quick. Sean's with his daughter. He's getting ready for school. It's cute, cute, cute. And the message is quick and easy, and powerful. It's powerful how he got here. But you were working at this law firm, big law firm. That's how we refer to it. Big.
Yeah.
People go their whole careers to work at a law firm like this. And what were you? Were you doing policy law at the time?
No, I was a litigator. So I was doing civil litigation. And so mostly representing companies that were being sued or by other companies. So not really big guy versus small guy, but big guy versus big guy. And yeah, that was my path. I did a lot of litigation and depositions. And yeah, that was what I did for a living.
Did you argue it in the court?
Yeah, I mean, few cases these days go all the way, especially at our rates. They would settle, but we
Right.
we would have different hearings and that sort of thing. And I did that, and it's a lot of writing and reading, and most of the times people back down before you have to go all the way. But yeah,
That's a
that
good
was me.
litigation lawyer. So when you make them concede before you even step foot in. But doing that in a courtroom, I mean, that's got to be great preparation for what you're doing now.
Yeah, you have to be good on your feet. You have to really be paying attention to details, and so all of those things really have served me well as I've gone forward into doing other things.
Litigation lawyers have to listen. They have to,
That's
here's what
right.
I've said. They have to listen to the breath between the words. It's
That's
that
right.
important every single step, So
Hmm.
I love your next step. So you're at the big firm. I don't know what year it is. I don't know what's going on, but
Well, I'll tell it to you. It was 2016. It was early 2016, and a guy that I'm sure everyone has heard of, Donald Trump, who had declared his candidacy for office, and he got into a dispute with the celebrity chef Jose Andres. They were supposed to have a restaurant in the DC Trump Hotel. Chef Andres pulled out because of his comments he made when he declared his candidacy. They were racist, and they. Well, I know it's
I'm just
surprising,
being
right?
sarcastic to people that can't see us.
But then Donald Trump sued Chef Andres over that, and they wanted me to be the senior associate on that case. and essentially say that Donald Trump's comments weren't that racist, they weren't that bad. And rather than do that, I quit my job. And as I explained, I was first in my family to go to college. This was something where I had a mortgage, and my daughter was 1 year old, but I knew I needed to walk away because I wasn't going to do that.
So, whether people support Donald Trump or not, it is a lost art to walk away from a high standing job in our Instagram world, where his job looks super fancy on his Instagram post, for something moral. Even with responsibility of a family like that, Sean is a leader. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I hear you. But at the time, I was thinking as I did it, oh, maybe I am crazy. But
A crazy leader, yes.
Out. Yeah, a crazy leader. But, it's funny you say that. Whether you support Trump or not, I've always found people who really resonate with that story because I was standing with my own conviction. So you don't have to agree with it, but I was at least consistent with my own principles. And I think people respect that.
Do you think that in politics, because running, the House here, there's a super majority in Utah, very red state. I always thought, if I got in, I wouldn't bend. Simply through the process of fundraising, people are asking you to bend. Like, oh, here's what we're interested in, and this is what we'd like you to be interested in. And it's got to be really hard because there has to be a balance. So we say, oh, our politicians sell out. Do they, or do they buy into a system that they have to operate in? It's kind of, there's certain things in place. It's very bureaucratic. I think the new leaders like yourself too will start cutting through this, right? Just say, we do it because it's the right thing to do. I don't care that there's a stack of literature that tells us how we got here. We're doing it. What do you think about that now that you're running around in the arena? Do you feel like there's a chance to go into politics and actually continue your strength, your voice, your compass pointing north?
I think so. I think there is a way to maintain that. And it's hard, especially here in Virginia. We don't have contribution limits. So you can have...
Oh my God, neither does Utah. It's such crap.
It's crazy.
Let's talk about this. It's insane.
Well, if you think about that, there's someone, if they're a mega millionaire, they can go run for office for fun because they can afford to fund it. Or you have people, just as you say, who can write one check and fund your whole campaign. And how do you resist being beholden to someone like that, or being beholden to a corporate interest group who may do the same thing? And so I think part of the issue is the systemic issues that cause this sort of, I wouldn't call it selling out necessarily, but perhaps compromising in ways you shouldn't. And so to do that, I think we have to solve those systemic issues. We need contribution limits. We need common sense legislation that does that. And that's a big part of it. But I think if we have folks who are standing up and willing to say, this isn't right, and to move in that direction, that's the first step to get there.
And as citizens and voters, we have a responsibility that the internet has allotted us. We can now go and look at people during the primaries. People who aren't, their name's not going to be out there because they're running and they don't have any money. And so the way the system gets connected is the big check writers keep writing big checks. And the little guys who I refused to raise more than $10,000 and then match about 20% of it. I have 20,000 voters. It was a stretch to win, but I just kind of thought, no, like we're in COVID, we've got hungry people. It's a really interesting world. And I'm super excited that someone like you that made the decision you did, so you proved yourself out of the gate, that you've got substance, is jumping in. So tell me about the Virginia political environment and who you're up against. And
Right. Yeah. Well, it's a odd system here in Virginia. Not only do we not have contribution limits, we have these off-year elections. So us in Jersey are one of the few places that have a statewide election this year in 2021. And my election is in 23 days, I believe, maybe 22 at this point. And it's going to be a June 8th election. That's our primary. I'm coming in as a first-time candidate against some delegates, but anyone you ask will tell you I have a very good shot at winning this. And what I've done is come out and say I'm not taking any corporate money. I'm doing this really on grassroots fundraising, getting our message out there, that video that you saw that everyone seems to love. And to your point, I think with the internet, we can fight back against these systems. If we have people banding together across the country and saying, these are the type of leaders we want, then we can help them get to where they need to go. And so that's what we've been doing. And like you said, in COVID, it's very challenging getting the message out there. But we're now, as things open up, we're able to visit with people more, but we're just trying to get the word out and really push on a message that meets the moment that we're in.
And as Americans, with everything that we've gone through the past couple years, we owe it to ourselves to educate ourselves about the system. We owe it to ourselves to not wait for someone to give $1 so they can push a message to us. We can go get our message. You could probably write Sean right now and he'll get to someone in his office about it, something you're interested in. If you're in Virginia and you're going to vote, I bet you they get back to you. So it's that simple. You are one click away from your congressman, your lieutenant governor, and these new folks that are running get it. They get that. They're customer service oriented. It's a different world. You've lived amongst clicks, an older generation is still checking the mailbox every day. And not that there's anything wrong with that. I'm probably in between. But it's so important. No one should need to raise $1. We should be sitting in front of our computers, researching the people in our zip code and making sure our vote makes a difference, because it does. Another soapbox. I'm on it all the time with this politics stuff. It's
hey,
insane.
You're right, though.
Let's talk about the Fairfax NAACP.
Yeah.
So another first you break. The youngest president of the Fairfax NAACP.
Yeah. So, and just to complete the story, when I quit my job, I was fortunate enough to get my next position working with Congressman Elijah Cummings. I worked on the council on the House Oversight Committee. And the guy who everyone said would never win an election, he won the election. Donald Trump became our president. And I was part of that team that was investigating his administration. But that, to me, really was the push I needed to get more involved locally. So I went to the NAACP and just was a volunteer, just doing work. And they kept giving me more work to do. And I eventually became the president. And they've been around for 102 years. I was the youngest president they had. And I actually grew it to be the largest chapter in Virginia. When I took over as president about a year and a half ago, a year and a half ago from January, stepped down in January. We had about 300 members, and I grew it to about 1,400 members. And so it caught a lot of attention here in Virginia. Yeah.
That's the point of new leadership in government. There you go. Proved and executed. Yeah. Proved and executed in the zip code. That's the difference. That's the difference. When you're not taking corporate dollars and you're doing it for the right thing, everybody needs to vote for you. Have to get you in. Let's see. What else I want to talk about George Floyd with you.
Yeah.
Another one of those amazing moments, is horrific as that is. I choose to focus on, I get the chills thinking about it, how we came together. We were all home. We were finally all watching, all. Yeah. And it needed that. We needed that. Things had started to bubble, right? The racial tensions were growing. People are waking up and saying, wait a minute, our internet's connecting us. We're talking to each other and we're, finding white allies are there. We just don't know where to speak up and, how to get involved sometimes. But I think George Floyd, at least for me, it opened me up to start talking about conversations that maybe I am uncomfortable about. I say all the time, I'm sure I say micro-racism comments. I don't know I'm saying them. I didn't know. I was raised by parents who drank from separate water fountains. That's who they were. They were raised racists, but they weren't racist. And that's a really hard thing, but I knew them. But as a white person, I just always say, it's okay. Have the conversations, even if you're wrong, have the conversations, even if you're offensive, because that's how we start breaking through things. So George Floyd for me was an awakening of really feeling like I could also be a part of a culture that I didn't understand all the way, but that I already was in my heart, if that makes sense. But like the action piece of it,
Sure.
not just being a watcher or a thinker or even a judger, you know, an opinion person, but actually getting me up off my ass to start taking action. And I have.
That's great. And I think it was for a lot of people. And, you know, I happened to be the NAACP president during this national moment. And we, for instance, one of the things we had been pushing on when I had taken over as president, I wanted to change the name of a high school we had locally. And for folks listening, in Virginia, I live in Fairfax County, and that's considered a pretty liberal area in some ways. But we had a Robert E. Lee High School. And folks they did not want to change that name. They were dead set against changing the name of Robert E. Lee High School. It was considered part of the culture and everything else. And it was something that I took on that they said was impossible, but we had broken through to get the name changed. And it happened around the time of the George Floyd murder. Because we were in the pandemic, they tried to delay it. They were like, oh, well, we'll just have to put this to the back burner. And then in that moment, it became this kind of groundswell that it had to change. It had to happen. And so it had already been agreed that it was going to change, but then it got changed to about a 180, as you can imagine, from Robert E. Lee to John Lewis High School, which it is today. And the kids there are so civically engaged and they're so proud of their name now. Whereas before, even if they weren't on the name change side, they were always it was always like, oh yeah, I go to Robert E. Lee High School, but you don't really want to say it. You know, in a different company, people kind of look at you funny while saying going to Robert E. Lee High School outside of Virginia. And so there's so much pride there now. But that was such a moment. It's the first moment in that terrible, tragic situation where I saw all this opportunity that people were open to learning about systemic racism and open to changing so many things. And it was great to see. And I hope we don't lose that. I feel that as things return to normal, we're losing some of that momentum.
Oh, I keep getting the chills. I hope not. I can't imagine. I mean, we can't undo it. You know, it can't be taken back. And that's where, you know, George Floyd, that name, you're alive during this time. That name was a game changer for society, and it's so needed. I hate a man's life, you know, that was a man. It's not just a fable or some story, but it's a man that made a movement. And there's something about it that I don't want to say it's beautiful, but he left a beautiful mark on our society. And that's, and as hard as that is to process, it's, you know.
Yeah, it's hard to believe next week is the 1 year anniversary, May 25th. And I remember the week after it happened, we held a car rally because at this time, remember, it was a pandemic. Nobody was, didn't know what to do as far as gathering and stuff. And we held a car rally and we didn't know who would show up or not. We thought maybe we'd get 50 or 100 cars. 2,500 cars came from all over Virginia to this rally. And it was one of those moments where you knew this was something different. This was a moment that people weren't going to just forget about the next day because our news cycles go so quickly. And so it's one of those things that I think we as a society really need to honor what happened and really remember it and use it to actually implement some sort of change.
Right. Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery. You know, there's a list, and we need to remember. And that brings me to theory race. So have you heard about this thing called theory race in schools? Like, it's in Idaho right now. There's something about how they're going to, whether or not they teach our true history, or if they just leave the stuff about, people of color out. And, we don't want to talk about all of it. So I have this theory that the reason this comes to such a shock to everybody is they weren't taught history in school.
That's true.
They're just not taught history in school. Like, we have a constitution that was written for white men. Period. That's 250 years ago, you guys. This isn't like BC. This is 250 years ago for white men. It's great. They found the country. Awesome. We got a constitution. But it wasn't about me. It wasn't about Sean. It was just about them. So to say that, and then, I mean, how long was it before you could vote, Sean? 100 years?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. At least
And was it a full vote, or was it 3/5 of a vote?
It wasn't you could vote, but then they had threw in the Jim Crow barriers up so that it was practically impossible to go vote. I share the story. My mother, and people make it seem like this is ancient history.
Right.
My mother grew up in segregated South Carolina before the Voting Rights Act, and she remembers her mother, my grandmother, going with friends to a bus, and they'd have to go to take a test that they knew that they weren't going to let them pass, and then they go home and they try again, and they'd never be able to vote. And she grew up firmly believing she wouldn't be able to vote. Just imagine that as a kid, you just sort of accepted it. Oh, this is not something that will happen. But she shared this with me because last week, in the former capital of the Confederacy, she voted early for her son for lieutenant governor. So this is what we can do in one generation from, my mom, who's still alive in Manassas Park, voted in her lifetime when she thought she never would be able to vote. She voted for her son. And so we can achieve great things.
So systemic, that just gives me the chills. I love that. What a proud mom. I have 2 sons. They're white sons. They're good sons. Like, these new white guys, they're great. Anyway, I don't want to get stuck on that, but they're great guys. It goes back to your mom. My mom, who's no longer alive, but was very clear when she was in Tennessee about how she had this class thing, like almost a societal thing in her mind that was not created equal.
Caste. Yeah,
yes.
Caste, yeah.
And so for anyone to say this isn't systemic or things have cleared out, they weren't taught history in school. It's not that far back. It's right there. They need to keep teaching it. We've come so far. We're such a great country. We've come a long way, and we have allowed all the religions. Everybody's here. We have to learn to get along. We've done a really good job. I mean, we're still an experiment. We're 250 years old. I've only voted 100 years. People, women, our input, 100 years out of 250. Wait till we're halfway. Things are going to be different. But they are different. I talk about that because, even my sons who are in their 30s don't really, they have to go self-teach themselves about all the things I'm talking about in order to understand it. So I'm hopeful that we keep our history in our schools because it is what it is. It is what it is. And we need to shine sunlight on it in order for the antiseptic to heal. And that's where the more we talk about it, the more we talk about it, normalize it, get people comfortable with conversations of whatever it is in whatever zip code, but it's there for all of them, In Utah, the problem is you don't have much diversity. Like, we're a very white state. So people don't see it. And they don't because there's people of color. There's not a lot of them here, So it definitely depends on where you're sitting, where you're looking out your window. But no matter where that is, you as a human listening right now can make a difference in your zip code with equality. Figure it out and do it.
That's right.
Yeah, we have to. We don't have a choice. So what do you think, after my soapbox, that your voters should be focused on, or what would you like them to focus on? Both those questions.
Yeah, well, I think they need to focus on what we've seen over the last, I guess we've been in this 14, 15 months now, this pandemic. The movement for racial justice, the uneven access to healthcare that we've seen, broadband access is a big problem here in Virginia and in rural parts. And I believe that as they go into this election, they should pick leaders that are able to respond to all of those crises that we've seen. And, I work in tech policy now, and so the broadband issue is something I can speak to, but the racial justice issue, we have to make sure we're coming out of this. And I think in Virginia, we have an opportunity because we're the first election after January 6th, the first after Trump and everything else, to say where this nation is going. And I think we have to elect leaders who really can meet that moment. And so I hope that they take stock of what we went through, what all the candidates are saying, and what do we want to project and pick going forward in the future.
I remembered something you've done, schools to prison path. So I am against privatized, profitable prisons. It's ridiculous how many taxpayer dollars go towards people in jail for marijuana right now, as well as the sale of the plant in those same states. We're getting triple taxed. It's ridiculous. But in general, a lot of prisons are profitable. And it's not our government making the better of everything. It's just some people who have to make more money every year, and that's true. But Sean did something, it was about the kids coming out of school and going into jail.
Yeah,
what was it called? I can't remember the name.
So we had changes that helped, we call the school to prison pipelines, essentially criminalizing behavior from young people. And so the behavior that maybe for us or for you would have ended up in detention or something like that, instead kids are getting arrested for it. And so what we worked with, what we saw that alerted us, we saw these arrests in middle schools in our county. And we said, what are they doing in middle school? And we started looking into what they were being arrested for. And it was always a very kind of fuzzy charge of disorderly conduct. And then when you dig into it, it's like, oh, they were yelling in the halls, running through the halls screaming. And that was disorderly conduct.
Are these in certain zip codes, or are these all through the state?
This was in Fairfax County, which is the largest county in Virginia. We actually have the 10th largest school system in the country. And it was happening to as early as middle school to mostly Black kids. And they were being charged with like disorderly conduct or something like that. And so we met with, and we basically demanded that they make changes to the policies, that they could not arrest kids for this, that the way that the cops operated in the schools, and we can get into whether they should be in our schools,
right,
but the way that they operated in the schools needed to change. And within 1 year, we saw a 60% reduction in arrests. So these are hundreds of kids that didn't ever go into this school to prison pipeline, is what we call it, because they weren't arrested for something that probably should have been handled like a misbehavior incident or something like that.
You need to write a book on this. You need to start tracking those kids right away, because those 60%, that's going to affect their entire family, like their children. Yeah. The butterfly effect of that is much bigger than that year.
Right.
They get like a solid step forward coming out of that.
Yeah. But this is the thing, those kids, they never get arrested, so you never know who they are, and they don't know that you've helped them, right? They never go into that system, which is what we want. We don't want people to say thank you. We want people to just never have to know that they were in danger of being a part of that system, because when kids get into the criminal justice system, it's almost impossible to get them out. That's
where they meet their cohorts. You go in as a newbie and you meet your new best friend that can teach you all the ropes. Truly. Right. But I do think that crime rates and everything in that particular school district will go down over the course of the years, because when you are seen, portrayed as a bad person, even if it's a kid running through a hallway and you're punished for it, you carry that. Especially at that age. You're going to feel like that little kid punished at 21 and 22. And, it's a control, put your thumb on them thing, and make sure they know who's in charge. And the best news is those kids are learning they're in charge, and they'll be in charge as adults, and that they're not bad.
Yeah. It's changing lives. It really is. Yeah.
I love it. Those are the things that people can do in their zip code. That's something that not anyone, but like it's a small thing. Seems small.
I would say it is anyone. What I've seen is that if people engage, if people get involved and do these things, they'll be shocked at what they can accomplish in their locality or anything else, because there's so many opportunities. There's so many opportunities for people to have good ideas and have input and try to fix things. And so I'm always encouraging people to get more involved.
Yep, you don't need the jet on Instagram. You just need a cute backyard with a happy family and some good neighbors. And that's a good life. Okay, let's see what where can people, so remember Sean said he's not taking corporate money. That means he needs money from people like us in different states, because every state, when they come together with those governors, it matters. They're like little presidents of their own countries. And, they talk together, probably got a little sorority, fraternity thing going on. But it's important to get people elected throughout our country in positions that matter. And so Sean matters. And how can they help you? You've got we're somewhere between 22 and 20 days right now when this podcast comes out, but where do they support you? And I'll be sharing all this on my social media as well, as far as your links and how to donate.
Yeah, they can go to Perryman, PERRYMAN, FOR Virginia, spelled out.com. And so it's perrymanforvirginia.com. And they can donate there. They can watch our video that you mentioned and learn more about what we're trying to do here. And they can even get involved, even if they're not in Virginia. If they want to text bank for us or make phone calls, they can do all of that. We have a little get involved button right next to the donate button. They can do all of that there. And then they can follow me on Twitter, Sean Perryman, and Sean is SEAN, Sean Perryman VA on Twitter. And so they'll be able to find me that way.
Find him. And by the way, just like I had friends that did my text messaging during the campaign, and they were in all different states and did it. And then I did it too. And it's so fun. People actually respond back, and you have these really great conversations. And one of them that responded to my friend said, "Does Stormy try to look like Zooey Deschanel?" I'm so bad with pop culture. And he's like, "I don't know if she tries." And the guy goes, "No, really, like, does she cut her hair and try to?" I go to a luncheon. I sit down. The guy's like, "Hey, I was texting with one of your helpers about if you try to look like Zoe." And I don't look like her. We wear glasses and have brown hair. But just fun little things like that. Like we had conversations about cars, and, where I'm from, they want to talk about guns a lot. So a lot of people asked how I felt about guns. But do get involved. Volunteer for Sean. Volunteer for people that you want to get elected. Get their word out. Share it on social media. We do not need billions of dollars to elect people when we can find them online. And the thing about Sean, and I don't know if we hit on it enough, but his whole life is about equity, fairness, and transparency in government, all of which are in dire need of assistance in government. He's doing the work to get kids not arrested. He's doing the work to create equitable environments for people. He's doing the work. Get him in place. This is it. These are the moments we have to do this. We are in charge. We being all these 120, 30 million people that get to vote. And that's the only way we're going to win it. Got your handles, you're a single dad? I forgot to bring that up. Probably because I was like, "Oh, you're so handsome." Single dad.
Yeah, my daughter is 6 years old. She's in kindergarten virtually, but she's looking forward to a summer camp where she's actually going to get to go in person. So it's going to be fun.
Oh, is everybody vaccinated out there?
Yeah, we're starting to. I got my second vaccine a couple of days ago. So I'm a few weeks, I guess another 10 days off from being 2 weeks out.
How are you feeling today?
I feel good. I got it on Thursday last week, so I'm pretty. But only thing I ever experienced was a little bit of fatigue.
That's what I did. I was so tired. I slept for 12 hours straight. 24 hours
Really?
later. Oh, it was the best sleep ever. I was like, "Oh, I'm so glad I didn't get COVID. I was so glad I didn't get it." That was my dog snoring.
Yeah, I've been hearing him the whole episode.
Oh no, that's terrible news. I've been like moving his head. Well, shoot. Then everybody knows it's the dog snoring. I got it.
Yeah. I figured it out about 10 minutes in. I was like, that's not her. So
that is not okay. That is not okay. Well, I'm voting for you, and I'm going to follow you on all your social handles.
Well, please do.
I'm going to promote you to everyone on my social handles. And then you need to win.
I'm trying. We're working as
Mhm.
hard as we can to do it. And
It's
the
sad.
biggest challenge has been the pandemic. It's been, getting in front of folks. But now that more folks are vaccinated and we can get out there, we feel really good about our chances. So, and if we can get people to see that video, that's why we need the money to get the video on TV.
Yep.
They will fall in love because everyone loves the video.
Yes. Yep. It's important. $1. $1, 100 times makes $100. 1,000 people. All of it matters. If you got $1, give $1. If you're in Virginia, give 5. At least.
Exactly.
At least. What else should we know about you? Anything you
Yeah.
want to say to bring these reel it home? First, I do want to say one thing. Wouldn't you rather have a lieutenant governor that's this cool to talk to? Like, he didn't put a mask on for this interview. He came as Sean Perryman.
Yeah.
And that's
Well,
unique.
I'm just a normal guy who decided to run for office. I mean, I told you I worked for Congressman Cummings. That was a big part of my inspiration for running. He was kind of this larger than life figure, and seeing him pass away and remembering what he said about the next generation doing its part, that was really important to me to step up in this moment where so many people were hurting. And so my background, I told you about the law and the tech policy and the grassroots advocacy. I'm really just going there to be an advocate for people. That's what I want to do. That's why I don't take corporate money, and that's why I'm doing this, is to help the most vulnerable among us. And I think if we set policy in that way, we all are better off. We are all empowered through that. So that's a big reason for me doing this.
I'd agree with that. And again, you're already doing this. You are already living this life. You're going to live this life. Let's get them in a leadership position and have our government live this life. Can you imagine how we'd all be taken care of? All of us. Health care, a little blanket when you're cold, but those are the things, and it's going to matter. So I'm so grateful you were on the show. It's folks like you that I hope to promote and hope to introduce to the world so the world becomes a better place. And for those listening, thank you for tuning in. Find Sean Perryman, follow him, support those like him. And regardless of when your elections are, take the time to study, learn your zip code, do yourself a favor, do your kids a favor, and vote the people in that you want your tax dollars to support. It's your choice, not theirs. And for us, thanks for listening to Lunch with Stormy. You can find us on all the podcast platforms. It's amazing when you go in, subscribe, and then hit 5 stars. Allegedly, we say that after every episode. Find me on StormySimon.com, and we'll check you next time. Thanks for joining.